The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
This is Haymaker Combat Sports. Hear it here, coming straight from the source. Only with the real, they ain't here to dress it up. Sweet science, MMA, you can get it all from us. Trust, 5 stars cause it's live. And through the fight game, we can guide ya. Slick talking, putting them in caution. Passing all the goals cause the audio is awesome. What you waiting for? Spread the word, tell a friend. This the podcast where all of the discussion ends. When they start going strike for strike, this the show that'll tell you what you seen in the fight. And they ain't playing on the mic, this a welcome to the show. Warm it up for the squad, Haymaker of the bros. I'm about wow, you can hear from the pros. It's Haymaker Combat Sports, time to roll.
Welcome to Haymaker Combat Sports, powered by the Belly Up Sports Media Network. I am your host, EJ Reed, joined by my fellow host, Steve Johnson. Once again, it's the dynamic duo. And Meyer's on assignment right now. He'll be back for the recap show, and we'll also have Chris on the recap show as well. But Steve, how you doing?
Nothing much. Tuesday before the hype. Same old, same old.
Yes, sir. And like Steve said, there is a pay-per-view this weekend. But before we get into that, like we always do at this time, we'll hit some news stories inside or outside of the cage. And we'll go through this news wrap-up brought to you by MMA Fighting. So there's a few news stories that went around. So the first one is dealing with Dana White and Mark Zuckerberg and Meta and that whole world over there. So Dana White and Zuckerberg, they announced a partnership. It became official. They announced a multi-year deal with Zuckerberg's Meta Corporation with emphasis on fan technology. And then Dana White specified how they're going to be incorporating AI in this partnership, and it's going to overhaul the ranking system. And they were kind of vague with it, even though they announced this partnership, and something with the algorithm as well, as far as the technology. So on first impression, what are your thoughts on this partnership that was announced?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can only imagine what's going to be implemented with social media and the feedback to the fans, and also during the cards, you know, where they have these tweets or whatever of what the fighters say about the fight at the time. To me, I hope it doesn't get too artificial. I mean, for real, I feel like now it's a little bit artificial already. I feel like a lot of those fighters don't even tweet their own tweets, let alone having AI and algorithm control of, you know, comments. I know people, I don't know if they're on the subject, but there's a lot more bot traffic than human traffic. So I mean, hopefully it'll be underhand and under good hands, and so it can be regulated very good. Because sometimes I see tweets on fights, and you'll see Nate Diaz, and I'm exaggerating, wow, these guys had a great fight. I'm like, man, Nate Diaz ain't say that.
Exactly.
But we'll see how it goes.
So if you look in the comment section, a lot of fans are not too thrilled by this announcement. They feel like UFC's focusing on the wrong things. They should be focusing on making the product better than focusing on AI. But what useful things do you think could come out of this?
Well, I could say maybe the rankings, since it will be consistent. We won't have a human flip-flopping who gets a championship title shot. I could say that's one.
Yeah, but even if they do have like a more streamlined version with AI, we all know that the UFC probably won't follow the rankings, even though they have a better way of actually making a ranking.
True. I guess the question is, I mean, how they're going to do it. Because like you said, I mean, I can't imagine Dana not having the last say on who fights who. Call audible.
Yeah, I just think it's a whole lot of sizzle, no steak. Feel like they announced it just to announce things. Like off the top of my head, I don't really think I could think of how AI can make the sport better. Like you said, it might be able to have a little bit better rankings, but for the most part, the rankings are what they are. And I'm trying to think, maybe you could try to incorporate AI in the scoring system. But as we know, AI is such a new technology, it's not foolproof. I know looking at the AI on my phone, they have like the AI assistants now on the phone with Google, and I think iPhone has a version of it. If you ask it a question, sometimes it'll give you such a generic answer, and sometimes they'll just, they'll search the internet and come up with some random stuff that hasn't been fact checked sometimes. So there's still some, error element in the AI. So I'm skeptical about it. If, like I said, if they could come up with a way to have some better scoring for judging and assist them, I think I might, be open to that. But for any other stuff, I don't really care. I don't know if you had anything to add on to that.
Yeah, I could say that would be an interesting system. Make it a point system. Of course, there will be a rank, but maybe somebody's knockout consistency or even finishing consistency, you might not overtake that person based off maybe adding up those type of points. Sort of like when you play a video game and you have different power level stats, power, speed, or whatever, it would calibrate the perfect fight rather than I would say a win should be the ultimate, how you correlate stuff. But I could say if they did that, I mean, that I could actually see how you could almost make a perfect fight through a point system rather than just wins. And that's when you do just wins, you just get MMA math, which is, I could say, you might get somebody fighting just because of style.
Yeah, so I agree with all the points you made. So if they could do that, then let's see what happens. But other than that, I think the technology needs to get a little bit better before start bringing it to sports. But we shall see. I don't know how Dana likes to jump out the window and likes to be the first to do everything. So we'll see how that shakes out. But moving on to more news stories around the MMA world. Your boy Jorge Masvidal, he calls out Leon Edwards to finally settle their beef. He said he'll come off the couch and whoop Leon Edwards' ass. So, still any intrigue into this fight? We all know that currently, I don't think Jorge is signed to UFC, but this was a fight that had a lot of juice to it back when he gave a 3-piece and a soda backstage and actually threw hands backstage. The fight never, took shape. Would you be interested if they circle back around to this?
Well, I say that's a good way to save beef in your back pocket. The thing is, did that beef become spoiled? Is it Leon still interested? Does he want to get back at him and say, well, you sucker punched me, now you trying to get back in on my name? But then again, Leon Edwards isn't in a good spot, and this is exactly probably what he needs. I think it's a good call out, and it's been waiting. I mean, how many years has it been since that happened? And I see he pulled all his cards he did have, and all he has is a jack. So he's trying to get his chance with that jack without ensuring, with a king or ace, so to speak. I think it's a shoot. Now, I wouldn't so much say shoot in the dark because it's aligning up perfectly with Edwards on his losing streak. I think it's a good chance they'll fight.
So you think it'd be like a one-fight deal if that were to happen for Masvidal?
I would say, because I don't see him doing anything in the welterweight class as far as getting any championship title. He might get up there, but then, I think those were his years when he got a chance with, of course, Edwards and Kamaru Usman. He would have to do an amazing highlight again, as far as like with Ben Askren, which those odds are few and far between.
Yeah, I think his championship days are behind them. I have to go back and look, but I want to say his better showings were at lightweight when he was at lightweight, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back and look at his record. He's one of those tweeners that can do either or. If you put down the fork, he could definitely make lightweight. But I mean, Edwards on a losing streak, so it's not like he called out the champion Edwards. So I wouldn't be mad at a showcase fight, but if you break it down and kind of map out how the actual fight goes, how do you think it would even go?
I would say it would be a more competitive than Kamaru Usman, based off of Leon Edwards isn't grapple based, but I give it to Leon Edwards more than Masvidal. It seems like Leon Edwards can generate more power out of his weight class.
Really?
Yeah.
See, me, I don't mean to be negative about it. I don't think it'll be competitive. I think Edwards will wash him. I think Masvidal, best years are behind him. He's 40. So it would be a lot of hype for the fight, and we probably would tune in, but yeah, I don't
Been on the couch too.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be competitive. Well, so what do you think? Like Masvidal has like a puncher's chance, maybe? Is that your thinking behind why you think it might be a little competitive?
I would say, because I could say Edwards is a lot more counter heavy than Masvidal, taking those chances to get inside with his footwork and switching the left and right stance mid combo. It's basically a style fight, but I think Edwards is the better counter fighter. And I think Masvidal takes more risks to try to get that striking. So I see it flowing more in Edwards. And I also see Edwards more stronger, can handle itself better grappling.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You got more faith in Masvidal than I do, but
I'm sorry, Edwards. I might be Edwards.
I might have heard you.
Edwards would win over Masvidal as far as like I think he's stronger than in that weight class.
Okay, yeah, I think I heard you wrong. So yeah, I mean, like I said, people will have eyes on it just because it's Masvidal. He has like, I wouldn't say quite Diaz-like cult following, but he does have a big fan following, especially in that crazy state of Florida. So yeah, let's see if they actually make that fight happen. But moving on to more stories. The reason I'm bringing up this story because it kind of affects where we are, our neck of the woods, so to speak. They announced that Ian Machado Gary versus Carlos Prates will now headline UFC Kansas City. And for those who've been listening, they know that we are just a couple hours down the road from Kansas City. And it's taking the place of Khalil Roundtree versus Jamal Hill. So yeah, they had to throw this fight in, and now this headlining. Does that kind of take away from your excitement of this fight night card, or still excited to see Machado versus Prates?
I think it's a good replacement. I mean, you got Prates on a run as far as knocking people out, striking. Even Machado, he's in there. He's put up a good fight, his last fight, as far as a possible champion contender. I think it'll be a good stand-up fight, and Ian Machado's getting popular and still out there, and then you got Prates, who's, like I said, a striking animal, and I could say it's good for the sport either way, which one wins. You got Machado, possibly can get back up there, and then you got Prates, can easily replace his spot. And then I could say if he does that, easily be in a fight before his championship.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I was more excited for Khalil and Hill, but that's not like a bad fight to replace it whatsoever. Machado Gary is a guy that, they're kind of putting their eggs in his basket as far as being like the next up. So he's still got some work to do before he becomes a household name, but it seems like the UFC is behind this guy. And like you said, Carlos Prates is an exciting fighter as well. But me as buying a ticket to the show, I haven't bought tickets to the show, but I planned on going. But I don't know if I'm going now because I do have but the reason is I have something to do on that Saturday, an important event I have to do. So I was going to see if I could do both and maybe attend my event and then maybe leave that a little early and head to Kansas City. But now that Khalil and Jamal are on it, I don't know if I'm going to do it. I think I might just stick it out there and finish out the event I'm supposed to help with. So it's unfortunate that fight got scrapped. And yeah, I don't know if I'll be making my way to Kansas City. I went when they came in 2023, as we know. We talked about that on the show. I don't know if I'll make it. So like if you were going to that fight, would that change your mind seeing a fight like that scrapped off of it? A caliber of Hill and Khalil Roundtree?
Definitely somebody who's fought for the championship and somebody that was a champion. Definitely it would change the caliber of if you want to go or not. I can see how that would change somebody's mind. Not saying Prates and Machado are not good fighters. They just, the accolades they have. Would you rather go to a pay-per-view or a canceled pay-per-view fight night? People would rather see a pay-per-view. And closest thing to pay-per-view as far as that fight night is two people that were champions recently. So
yeah, and when I was living in California, UFC didn't come to the Bay Area at all, maybe because it was a Bellator stronghold. And of course, I'm from South Carolina. Of course, they didn't come there when I was living there. Florida, when I was living in Florida, they didn't come to Northern Florida. I have to go back and think. Because I want to say them going to Miami so often is a post-pandemic thing. You know how open Florida was during the pandemic. So I'm thinking they're trying to show them love by going back so often. But I don't remember them going to Miami like that when I lived in Florida or any parts of Florida or like Tampa, because I would have definitely went because I lived in Jacksonville. So post-pandemic, I've noticed that they've been coming to Missouri a lot. It came last year in St. Louis and the year before that in Kansas City, and now again Kansas City. So I like to get to these live events. So I'm thinking they may go back to St. Louis next year. So since I probably won't be able to make it in the fight 2 weeks, hopefully they'll be back in Missouri, maybe St. Louis next year, and I'll be able to catch that. But yeah, it's unfortunate when they have to scrap some of these fights, but injuries happen. Hill got injured this time, and when they originally scheduled a fight, that's when Khalil Roundtree popped for those PEDs, and then he failed up even after popping and getting that Hill fight scrapped. That was when he got the Alex Pereira fight after that. So, like we said earlier, it's no telling what these UFC matchmakers do. But let's move on to this next story. The last story as far as these the roundtable of these stories from MMA fighting, but I do have a story about another guy right after this. But Zack Snyder, he directed the Justice League movie, the Snyder Cut, and some other movies I can't think of off the top of my head, but he's teaming up with Dana White and the UFC to make a movie called Brawler. It's supposed to be based on a UFC fighter. I mean, I don't know if it's because they're supposed to be shooting, I think, some scenes probably, sometimes during the fights. I think they did it for the Jake Gyllenhaal movie where they shot some scenes during the actual UFC card. But I think they plan on doing it for this brawling movie. So this is almost like a general thought. Do you get excited for some of these MMA movies in general? Do you think they have a good portrayal for the most part when they, when they show you a UFC and MMA on these movies?
I haven't been really captivated by these movies. I mean, maybe so, younger and maybe growing up, more captivated by a boxing movie or a martial art movie, but not an MMA. Of course, is martial art, but a specific MMA movie that'd be like, oh man, that's a classic. I mean, we can talk about different other movies. Undisputed is a good series. But speaking to boxing, what's a boxing movie that I've seen? Of course, Rocky, yeah, Ali,
Crease.
There's a few of them out there that'd be like, yeah, man, I remember that, but I haven't seen one. I think first one in my memory that's been produced was that Never Back Down?
Forgot about that movie. Yeah, that was an MMA. I've never seen bits and pieces. Was that any good?
That's what I'm saying, man. I don't remember it. And I know that was pretty popular as far as getting that movie out there to promote at the time. I think I remember
that one movie that I saw such a long time ago. I can't even remember exactly how it played out. The one with Tom Hardy, The Warrior, came out in like 2011.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, Joel Edgerton. And of course, like I was talking about earlier, Jake Gyllenhaal, the one that just came out on Amazon with Conor McGregor and that Roadhouse, even though it wasn't strictly MMA, it had a lot of MMA elements in it because he was an MMA fighter. But yeah, I don't know, for some reason, like you said, boxing movies have translated to classics, but MMA, they hadn't had that like one classic MMA movie that like breaks through pop culture. Maybe this one will get over the hump, which I doubt, but all it takes is one.
They might have to do a John Jones when he gets retired or some biography movie or something.
That'll be like rated NC-17. There'll be some wild stories in that one. Drug use and women, and it might be interesting. Those will usually make the best movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I guess we'll have to see how this one turns out. But before we move on this pay-per-view, one more story. Did you see about this? Henry Cejudo, a burglar, broke into his studio and stole his UFC belt. You see that?
Yeah. Oh, what was that? I mean, how many title defenses? Because he should have some jewels around it.
Well, I think they stole his first one, the one, the old UFC belt design.
Okay. Yeah.
Looks like he still has the newer design. Like that's how long he's been in the sport. He still got the old one with the big UFC letters across it before they went to that little, like, almost like octagon shaped belt that they have now. But yeah, they stole his old belt.
Seems like somebody may have knew him to steal that, something specific like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's bold. I feel like if you burglarize somebody, like you said, it had to have known it was him, because what if you're like a random burglar and you go to break into somebody's house and then I guess you find out that it's a UFC fighter and you see the belt, you think about snagging it, and all of a sudden the light comes on and the UFC fighter comes out and just, I mean, I think at that point, especially in whatever state you're in, if you're like a stand your ground state, you probably will die unless you got a weapon on you yourself.
I guess burglars messing with MMA fighters is popular. I can think of 3 or 4 on the top of my head.
Yeah,
Smith, John
Jones, yeah. John Jones handled the dude. Who else?
John Jones, Sean Strickland, Anthony Smith, few people that walked in as far as like MMA fighters, and burglar didn't know.
Yeah, it's never smart to burglarize somebody's house. It's a crime, of course, but hoping these burglars are smart. I'm sure they have to have weapons on them, especially like you said. Uh, well, like I said, the statistics show, most crimes happen to people that they know. Most crimes happen in general from people that they know. Usually, it's not random crimes. So, I hope you know what you're dealing with. It's even going to somebody's house in general, man. You don't know what somebody's packing, but I'm sure, like, if you're a criminal, you don't care. You're probably packing yourself. So, crime is bad, people. Just don't do it.
Yeah, I feel like in those situations, the person that's doing the burgling, I mean, you walked in a situation to where if somebody wanted to, somebody can legally torture you. And what I mean by that is, you already did the no of a threat of life. So who's to say I can't stomp you a little bit and say I was fighting for my life? And have you going to ensure your life? I mean, is it better to get shot or have an MMA fighter torture me till the police comes?
Yeah, man, it's your word against theirs, and you're the criminal. So who they gonna believe? Probably the person that you burglarized. So,
Yeah.
But it's interesting that Henry Cejudo's been in the news back to back. Did you see him? Somebody crashed into his neighbor's house, and they tried to hit and run, and he was able to, stop the guy, and until the police got there. I think they said he tackled the guy or like was able to, restrain him. Did you see that story?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, this happened like a week ago. So, and Henry Cejudo is running into a lot of interesting events back to back. So, I don't know. Maybe it's best if he hops back into training so he can avoid some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, the driver was going 80 miles per hour in a residential area before crashing into the side of his neighbor's house. That's insane. So I don't know if the guy was intoxicated, but what I'm thinking, because I'm skimming through the story right now. If you crash into a house at 80 miles per hour, I'm going to go off a limb and say you're intoxicated if you just walk out the car. They say the guy got out the car right after that. So they usually say, like, I saw a lot of like the DUI people survive and like the people that they hit don't, because when you're intoxicated, your body's so relaxed that you're able just to survive the crash, which is, the irony of that. Somebody who's alert and ends up dying because of that. That's why it's not good to drink and drive. But that's crazy. Can you imagine like hitting somebody's house at 80 miles per hour and still escaping the car after that? That's crazy to me.
Yeah. I'll probably quit driving for a while.
He's gonna have to quit around for a round on his own choice.
Yeah.
Probably gonna go to jail. So hey, shout out to Henry Cejudo for being a good Samaritan in that situation. But that's it for the stories as far as this week goes. So let's get into this pay-per-view that's going down this weekend in Miami, Florida, down at the Heat Arena. UFC 314, headlined by Volkanovski and Lopez. So news broke out this week, I think it was a few days ago, that they're set to debut somebody on the desk for this pay-per-view. He's not on like the commentary like team as far as like Joe Rogan and Cormier and John Anik, but he's a part of, that desk where they cut towards, like when they're at ESPN, they cut towards the top and they're sitting at the desk. He's gonna be joining Anthony Smith up there and Chael Sonnen. Apparently, it's gonna be Dustin Poirier. He's gonna be at the desk. So, you think this is like one foot out the door? He's testing the waters to see how it is on the media side.
Yeah, I would say some to tackle. I see they give a few of these fighters opportunity to have a job after their MMA career. So this may be a tryout. I can't remember if the fighters I remember are still on the commentator line, but I remember they tried it with Michelle Watterson. I don't know if she's still up there. See if her commenting skills to get a job. I don't think that's good, and I would say maybe a lot of these fighters don't get that opportunity to get a commentator spot. They pick certain people who they think are articulable in front of the camera.
As far as these fighters transitioning into the media side of things, excluding Cormier, because I feel like that's the low-hanging fruit, who do you think has done the best job of like transitioning on that side of things?
Well, of course, Chael. He's always been.
Yeah.
I can see Rashad Evans. I can see he's gotten comfortable. He's a dude that does a good job. I remember the people that tried and it didn't so work out. I remember Tony Ferguson.
Oh, he was on there? That's an interesting choice.
He had a suit on it, though. He got into it with we talked about it. Food truck, brother with the fruit, not food truck, brother with the food, Kevin.
Oh, Kevin Lee.
Yeah, I think maybe
Keith Lee is his brother with the food truck.
Yeah.
Kevin Lee is the fighter.
He was like, he's like, I don't know what you're explaining about my fight. I think you said a DDT. I think that's a wrestling move. I think we just need to get this guy off the panel. And then they started arguing because of that. Because Tony Ferguson told him he got DDT'd in the ring, but he still won that fight. So it seemed like Tony Ferguson was hating.
That's funny. I gotta go back and watch that clip. But yeah, I'm gonna keep it positive. I'm not gonna say to people who I'm not a fan of a commentary team, because who knows, we might try to get an interview with them one day. But as far as people I think is transition well on that side of things, I think like you said, Rashad does a good job. Of course, Chael, he's just a natural on the mic. Also, I like Michael Bisping when he does his thing on the commentary team. And I also like Paul Felder. I think Paul Felder does a good job as far as that goes. So, yeah. Shout out to Dustin Poirier. Hopefully he does a good job.
Speaking of Paul Felder, he's gotten in an argument with a MMA fighter, but I can't. So, is it Colby? Yeah, I think it was Colby. I think they got a little argument or whatever online or something.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, we all know how Kobe gets down, but I wonder, because Paul Felder is such like a nice guy. I mean, he does this thing in the cage. Like, he's one of those guys that like kind of like Robbie Lawler, like outside of the cage, he's a nice guy, but inside the cage, he does his thing. I feel like Paul Felder fits behind that mold. Like, Paul Felder's so unproblematic. Like, you had to probably piss him off if he's going back and forth with you. I wonder what Kobe said to him.
I think the last thing I remember he's saying said something about Paul Felder maybe commenting or whatever. Something about either one of the two accusing of getting drunk. Oh, saying that Paul Felder got drunk one day, and I can't remember the place, but they had to basically escort him out or tell him to leave. And then I forgot what Paul Felder said back, but something along those lines.
So this story comes from MMA Fighting. I might skip around a little bit, but I'm going to read some of it word for word. In a recent interview at Submission Radio, UFC welterweight Colby Covington was asked about Felder's comments about him, which Felder co-host Michael Bisping. Felder mentioned that Covington's persona is fading. Okay, so that's where the beef stemmed from. Felder said Covington's persona is fading, and Covington really doesn't want to talk trash but wants to stay relevant. And then Covington went off on Felder and told a story about Paul Felder visiting a military base. It was both the two are involved. Covington said Felder was talking shit about him. He said this and some other shit, and I don't remember handcuffs, military. Like I said, I'm just skimming in the story. So he was he was saying Felder was drunk on the base. Didn't you say that earlier?
Yeah.
Okay. And he called him a self-loathing drunk asshole. Okay. So I guess it's Kobe being Kobe, trying to clap back. And Felder's manager replied to it. And I'm skimming through this. Felder's manager basically defended Felder in the situation. So it's a bunch of he said, she said bullshit. Like, man, maybe Felder is right. Maybe Covington is just doing this to stay relevant. I don't know. What you think?
Yeah, I could say he nitpicks where he can. And I could say if Colby's butthurt about certain things, commenting, that's his tactic to stay relevant. I mean, can't blame him. If your name comes up, you can use it like a fish hook and grab it just for the sake of it. I think that's just his business plan.
Yeah, well, whatever he has to do to stay relevant. It's not my money, it's his money to make. And if it works, I guess go for it. Not my cup of tea. I've never been a Kobe fan of his antics outside the cage, but do you? But let's get into this card that's happening this weekend. Steve, going to the early preliminary card we have on ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, Fight Pass. Women's bantamweight, we have Nora Knoll versus Haley Cowan at women's bantamweight. Then at middleweight, we have Trayshawn Gore versus Marco Tulio. And then flyweight, we have Sue Mudarajai versus Mitch Raposo. And then the early prelims off, we have featherweight Darren Elkins versus Julian Rosa. Any of these fights pique your interest?
I would say the recognizable faces just from seeing them. Trayshawn Gore.
Yeah, I remember it. Then he had like a nasty knockout.
I think so. Let's see who was that. I think
it was in the recent.
Brundage.
You said Brundage?
I think so, because that was his last KO. I felt like
he lost. He lost to Brundage, but okay, yeah, it was a guillotine. It wasn't a knockout. That was the one I was thinking of. He had a guillotine against Josh Brim, and then also Antonio Tricoli, excuse me. But yeah, I don't even remember that Cody Brundage fight. He fought Brian Battle too. Like these fights just mix all into one another. But yeah, hopefully I get to watch that live. If not, I'll go back and check Kershaw fight. That Elkins fight kind of intrigues me as well. How about you? The Elkins and Arosa?
Yeah, it does. Just because we all know that Darren Elkins sacrifices his body for the sport, and it usually gets down and dirty with him. If it's not ended early, but it's what I'm interested in. It. It's what I recognize as Darren Elkins and seen him in the game for a minute in hard fought wars.
Definitely. Moving on to preliminary card on ESPN, the middleweight division, we got Cedricus Dumas versus Michal Olejniczak. In the lightweight division, we got Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. Women's strawweight division, we have Yan Zhang versus Vina Jandiroba. And then to top this one off, we have featherweight division, we have Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. Interesting prelims. Any of these fights in particular that you're excited for?
Yeah, of course. Well, Chase Hopper. And it's funny. I think Chase Hopper. I think before who just fought this last weekend, young guy. What's his name?
Was it on the Emmett and Murphy
Yosa?
card?
Is that his name? Yeah, his last card. Young cat.
The Apex card this past weekend.
Yeah. The young kid that the youngest in the UFC right
now.
Oh,
you're talking about the card the weekend before last, the one we reviewed.
Okay, I might mix that up. My bad.
Raul Rosas Jr.
Yeah. Chase Hopper, I think he used to be, as far as age, before when he came in, as far as pretty young. And I think he may have had a up and down during it, but I would say, saying that, I'm saying it's would be veteran against youngin. This matchup as far as Jim Miller and Chase Hopper, so I'll be looking for that. We have Jan versus Verna. That's going to be a good fight. Jan, championship contender. Verna, she's on her way up and having, I think, if I remember, one or two impressive wins on her way up to this fight now. So, of course, that. And then, of course, who doesn't want to see Dan Ige? Also that, too.
Yeah, the Dan Ige and Sean Wisden. Sean Wisden, he's a lanky guy. He's been putting on some impressive performances lately. He's a St. Louis guy, so it's always exciting to see the Missourians go do their thing. He was at that card I went to last year in St. Louis, and it was a decision win, but he put on a pretty exciting performance. And then most recently, during that Covington Buckley card, he had that TKO down in Tampa. So he always puts on a show. Yeah, that Jim Miller and Chase Hooper fight, it seems like it's shaping up to be like a passing of the guard. Like they may be trying to get Jim Miller out the paint because Hooper's 25 and Miller, he's 40 plus. And I don't know how that fight goes because Hooper's very adept on the ground, got the jiu-jitsu going on. I want to say he was at a card I watched. He was also on that St. Louis card because he got that Bravo choke down in St. Louis when I went to it because I remember watching that live. So Jim Miller, he's got a fight on his hands, so we'll see how that shakes out. Of course, the women are gonna do their thing too, as far as Jalnon and Jenny Roba, and even the Cedricus Dumas fight and Michal Olejniczak. So hopefully I'm not occupied and I'll be able to watch the prelims as well. It's going to be on big ESPN, so definitely going to be a lot of eyes on that. But moving on to the main card, which we will make our picks for. Kicking this one off in the light heavyweight division, we got Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. What are your thoughts on this one? Who you got?
I'm going to have to go with Nikita Krylov. He's on a winning streak. And not only that, if I'm Ryan Spann, he fought. And I think Ryan Spann won that versus Nikita fought Ryan Spann and a few fights ago, I think knocked him out or his last fight. I think this Nikita's got it hand down. I mean, he's got a what streak? 1, 2, 3 fight win streak. I think he got it hands down.
Hands down? You don't think Reyes puts any type of fight or effort up?
I would say he has a chance, but I would say he got a win off of Anthony Smith, which is on a downfall, and I think Nikita Krylov, has been looking more prestige than Reyes, so I think he has a better chance than Reyes based off his consistency and wins.
So the odd makers have this basically pick 'em. Krylov is a minus 190 and Reyes is a 160. So Vegas doesn't miss a lot. So they think it's going to be a competitive fight, but they do give the edge to Krylov. So I'm going to go with Krylov as well, just because it's more so what I'm not seeing out of Reyes from what I'm seeing out of Krylov. And Reyes has been on a downward trajectory for a while, and I'm surprised he's still in the UFC at this point. But like you said, Krylov is on a hell of a three-fight win streak as far as caliber opponent. Gustafsson, even though it's not the Gustafsson of old. Ozdemir is always a game fighter, and then Ryan Spann was on that streak too. So even though the Paul Craig loss isn't aging gracefully for him, but definitely the Ankalaev loss. Like, it's no shame in losing to Ankalaev. You're now champion. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Krylov too, but as far as Reyes goes, this is like almost last shot of proving he's a UFC caliber fighter. You said, but like you said, he has 2 wins in a row after going on that 4-fight win streak. But I just feel like he's just floating, and you can still make a good career of just kind of just having some wins here and there, but just going from pushing John Jones to the limit to just being like just their fighter just seems like a drop off for him.
Yeah, it sure does. Talk about a fall from grace. I mean, who knows? Maybe he got stuck in his ways as far as like he put up a whole plan for John Jones and try to keep it for his after fights after that. And just, I don't know, probably didn't get out of his ways of fighting Jones because he just totally, I don't know, what is it, the motivation? He thought if he can survive with John Jones, he can take everybody, and every fight is different. And we've seen that, you can be competitive with the best and then look like crap for your next 4 or 5 fights.
And it's not about the level opponent he was losing to, because if you look back at it, he kind of went through a murderous row of people he was losing to. Blachowicz, former champion. Prochazka, former champion. Ryan Spann, like I said, he was on his way out, but it was the way he was losing. He was getting knocked out on all of those, and that doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So, and then I don't even remember the Dustin Jacoby fight. Apparently that happened last June. He knocked him out. I remember the Smith fight because we talked about it on here. We were saying how that was a loser leaves town match, but as we see, Smith is still in his car, so that did not come to fruition. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what this win does for Reyes as far as the bigger picture of things. It's always good to get a win. For me, I just don't really see him going on some crazy streak and getting a title shot again. I don't know what you think about that, but just because we've been there, done that. But light heavyweight isn't the deepest division, so crazier things have happened. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. As far as, like you said, what are the results after this, or who's his opponents? As far as Nikita Krylov or
no. I'm just saying, like, what is this? Like, what does this win even do for Reyes? I don't know if he'll ever be in that title contention after this.
I mean, maybe he can stubbornly think. Of course, it's up to the fighter, but to the fan, people looking at him, of course. And I don't think his run is done. Like you said, you can make money just floating around. I mean, you're known as the person that gave John Jones a competitive fight. It's better than nothing. You fought the best and lost, but at least you have a memory in fans' minds. So I don't see anything. I would say just try to get good fights.
Well, I guess we have to see how this fight actually plays out before we go ahead and predict. So I'm sure we're going to touch on this again after the fight happens. But moving on, in the featherweight division, we have Yair Rodriguez facing newcomer, but he's still a veteran in the sport, Patricio Pitbull over there from Bellator, long-awaited UFC debut. What are your thoughts on this one, and what's your pick?
It's a great introduction to the promotion as far as for Patricio. Definitely not an easy one. Yair Rodriguez, of course, a talented fighter. I think it's going to be a good fight and a good test into the UFC. I've always liked Yair Rodriguez for his striking diversity. I will have to go for Yair, although Patricio's put in work. we all do know this is a whole different caliber of skill, the UFC, and this will just be the fight to see where he is, sort of like how we scaled Chandler, so to speak. You know, I just have to see this fight to see where he's at.
So no faith in Patricio Pitbull, three-time featherweight champion, former Bellator lightweight champion, almost was a 3-division champion, but he lost to Pettis in that bantamweight fight. I remember watching that fight actually too. No faith in that Pitbull could get it done against Rodriguez.
I've seen, seems like the statistics of people coming over to the UFC, very rarely, they'll reach gold if any has ever have. Like I said, it's a whole competition, and I think the UFC fighters take that honor to not get beaten by anybody outside the promotion. Maybe that's a hidden, unwritten rule, but I think that's what it is. Chandler achieved his goal and initiated himself as somebody that's skillful enough to be amongst UFC fighters. And I feel like there's Bellator fighters that came in, and you have to earn that respect.
Okay. Well, Admire agrees with you. He also has Yair Rodriguez. I'm gonna go against the grain a little bit because this is pretty much a pick'em fight as well. Yair is a slight favorite at a -195, and Patricio is a +165. But I'm gonna go with Pitbull to have the slight upset. And I mean, like you said, sometimes they don't have the best track record of coming over from a different promotion and their first fights. MVP got a win in his first fight, the most recent example I could think of, and then he lost the second fight. Also, Will Brooks is a bad example of like a guy that was hyped up and he came over here and didn't do so well. So it could go either way. And Michael Chandler, he had a good first impression, but like if you look back at it, he's kind of been up and down as far as his like wins and losses in the UFC. It's just his fight style so exciting that you don't really knock him for his losses like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the most recent example, like I said, MVP. Right now he's 2-1 in the UFC. Like that, like I said, he beat Holland in that first fight, lost to Gary the next one, and then beat Magomedov in the next one. So we shall see what Pitbull does. And they just announced that Aaron Pico, another Bellator guy, just signed with the UFC as well. So we're starting to see those guys over from Bellator migrate over to the UFC. So we'll see what happens this weekend with Pitbull and Rodriguez. But moving on to the next fight. Oh, hey, I picked Pitbull. I was about to say, did I say who I picked? I picked Pitbull. But moving on to the next fight in the featherweight division, we have Bryce Mitchell versus John Silva. And of course, Bryce Mitchell is a lightning rod for controversy. I'm pretty sure we talked about on the show with his Nazi comments and whatnot. He's a bonehead outside of the cage, but guys like that always have a cult following in this country for reasons we won't get into. But what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, this fight is highly advertised between the comments that Bryce Mitchell said and the fighter now that takes it personal, who I think he was a Jewish person himself. If I did some
oh wow,
little bit of research, I think there's a little back and forth, And
yeah, I heard there's some trash talk between them.
Oh yeah, and the face off, serious. So I think for what it's worth, not the comments, but the publicity of the fight it's I would say it's adding more eyesight to it because it's bringing that atmosphere of teaching the bad guy a lesson, or whoever's whose side on, or people believing Bryce Mitchell needs redemption or didn't mean what he said. But that's what it's bringing to the fight, and I think that's what the anticipation for this fight is.
Mm-hmm. And who's your pick for this fight?
I can say Bryce Mitchell. Of course, we know him. John Silva, I haven't been too much having an eye on him. Seems like he has I see it. I mean, he's not doing too well, but Dober, that's an impressive win by TKO. A lot of them are all these damn things are KOs. He might have a problem.
He hasn't lost in 7 years.
Yeah, I think Mitchell better be pulling out that grappling, or else I don't think it's looking too good for him. Mitchell, I want to give him a chance, but I'll go with Silva. I'll go with Silva. And those KOs, I've always intrigued by people who got KOs by the fight name of who they fought. So I don't have to give it to them. I gotta respect it.
So, like you said earlier, a lot of animosity going into this fight. Silva wants to teach Bryce Mitchell a lesson, and I think he gets the job done. And I got Silva as well, and Admire also picked Silva. So all three of us have Silva in this one. Moving on to the co-main event in the lightweight division, the guy we were just talking about. Iron Michael Chandler versus Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Paddy's been doing a good run. And then we got Chandler, who's an achieved champion. Well, did Paddy in his last promotion he achieved, champion, didn't he?
I think he was on the regional scene. Michael Chandler was a champion in Bellator.
Mm-hmm. Well, Pimblett is very slick on the ground, and I can say he has a little bit of hands-on expertise grappling and on the ground. But I can say Chandler is a strong guy and can handle himself, as we've seen. He impresses me. If he gets to the ground, it's very hard to submit him. He survives, these rear naked triangle holds on him versus somebody you don't have confidence in, like a Poirier, somebody good grappling, get on his neck, he might tap. Chandler showed that he's defended these positions a lot, Oliveira, first example comes to my mind. And I say this to say that I think Chandler has a good chance to win this. If he goes to the ground with Pimblett, he can, versus his strength, he can find a way to get back up and avoid and have a lot of grappling defense against Pimblett. I would be leaning more towards Chandler just because he's the stronger, more veteran guy.
Man, this is kind of a tough one to pick. And this is kind of a do or die for Chandler. I mean, he seems like a guy that UFC would only cut if they had to, because he seems like a pretty company guy for the most part. And he puts on exciting fights, but looking at his record, he's 1-4 in his past 5 fights. So the rubber kind of needs to meet the road as far as him winning. Do you think this is kind of a downgrade for him? Having the McGregor fight almost in the bag, and now he goes to Paddy Pimblett?
Well, of course. But hey, I guess he can't do nothing about it. And I guess the next best thing is somebody they're hyping up. I can't see who's in the lightweight division that's being promoted as much as Paddy Pimblett, and I just think it's a good accolade to have to keep out there his name. Other than that, I don't think it's a bad choice because Chandler's been, like you said, up and down anyway. Can't catch a traction. So I think this is for being off on not having a opponent to fight up. I don't think he can complain.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think this is a downgrade from the money he would have made with the McGregor fight. But I don't, like I said earlier, I don't think McGregor fights again. He's talking about running for president and all of this hoopla. Odds for this one has Paddy Pimblett is a slight favorite, 150 to 125, but you're going with Chandler. And also, Admire's going with Chandler too. So I think I'm going to go against the grain. I think I'm going to pick Pimblett in this one. Just because I think grappling might make a difference. And I feel like Pimblett's grappling is a little bit underrated. I think Chandler might get too overzealous on the ground and maybe get caught in something. I can see it happening like that. All I know is I don't think Chandler is gonna get a decision against Pimblett. I think if Chandler is gonna beat Pimblett, he's going to knock him out, which is definitely possible. So Pimblett better be on his P's and Q's because if he gets caught, Chandler definitely has the power to put him to sleep. But I would say Pimblett by submission, but for some reason I think he may eke out a decision. And we all know how these refs are unpredictable. So I think Chandler may have the ooh in all moments, but I think Pimblett may outvolume him even if it stays on the feet. So I am going to take Pimblett in this one, and Steve and Admire have Michael Chandler. Definitely should be an interesting clash of styles in that one. But moving on to the main event in this one for your vacant featherweight title, we have the former champion Alexander the Great Volkanovski versus up-and-comer Diego Lopez. What are your thoughts and what's your pick for this one, Steve?
Well, we all know Volkanovski is a beast, but hasn't been as active. Been kind of on the cooling down as far as taking in fights. And I feel like it's been a while since Lopez fight. Last year, that's less than a year ago. More active than Volkanovski, I see.
Five winning streak for Lopez.
Yeah, I can see, man, but I don't like the caliber of the win streak compared to Volkanovski.
Ige's not a bad win, and of course Ortega is a very good win for Lopez.
Yeah, but then again, we look how Volkanovski, how he fought against him, Ortega. Of course, I only thing I remember the damage Volkanovski was in fighting Ortega was that headlock, or that
he got that submission.
Man, I like Lopez and he's a very strong striker, but it seems like his experience. I think I'm leaning more towards Volkanovski might slip one with just because of experience and veteranship.
So you got Volkanovski in this one.
Man, I'm leaning towards it. Although I see Lopez as the younger, seems like he would be more stronger fighter. Although Volkanovski, so-called soccer dad body, is deceiving. I know Volkanovski might be able to be strong enough to, maybe manhandle him or get these takedowns on him. I'll go with Volkanovski. He may be hungry and have enough experience to get him out there.
Man, I was hoping you went the other way so I could be like the tiebreaker between you and Admire for this pick. But Admire also picked Volkanovski, and the odds have Volkanovski as It minus 120, and they have Lopez evens. So it's basically a pick 'em. I don't understand how they have an even for one person and a favorite for the other. But it's Vegas for you. Man, I really think Lopez is probably gonna win this fight, but I'm cheating on this one. I'm doing this just so I can stay above water if I do get this pick wrong. So I'm gonna go Volkanovski just on paper, just to stay like in the mix, just in case I got the other fights wrong as far as our picks for the year. But I'm gonna go. But I think Lopez is gonna win this fight but Volkanovski, every time in the past when he was on the streak, and I thought he might have run into a problem, he always won the fight, and then he just hit a wall. He faced Islam Makhachev, but Islam, of course, is pound for pound, arguably one of the best in the world. He lost to him, and he beat Rodriguez. He knocked him out by TKO, but still, he's still 1-3 in his past 4 fights. But look who the competition is, like world champions. Well, we didn't know Tapir was the champion at the time, but now he is. He got knocked out, and he got knocked out by Makhachev, which I don't like when people start getting knocked out, man. That kind of worries me, man. So once that button gets pressed, we see it get pressed all over and over again, like we saw with a Chuck Liddell. That's why I think Lopez is going to win this fight, even though I'm picking Volkanovski on paper just to stay with y'all on the picks. But I'm not confident that Volkanovski is going to win at all. Like I said, I think Lopez is going to be able to pull this one out, and he becomes your featherweight champion. Because I think all of us, right, 3 are neck and neck in these picks. I think you and I are tied, and I think Amai is ahead of us. So just in case about those last fights I pick, I'm going with Volkanovski in this one. But if Volkanovski does win, we'll talk about this more in depth once the fight happens. I feel like he's kind of like he's done all he really can at featherweight. So I don't know how long this reign will last if he wins the belt back. You think he's just gonna go on another tear after this, or you think this might be a short reign if he does win? Like I said, we'll talk about this more in depth. Just a quick thought on that.
Man, I've seen a compilation of things on my feed and algorithm. I hope I'm not quoting wrong, but if I remember, I think there's rumors that he might retire.
Oh, Dana White will be pissed if that happens. You saw when GSP did that with middleweight.
Yeah.
I'm sure they probably talked about him and what his plans are if he wins the belt, but fighters can do whatever they want. Don't you think that'd be a bad look if he wins the belt and just retires?
I would say yeah, but then again, maybe if somebody never was champion, he's a little bit different. He's been champion and defended it. And plus he's on his way out as far as having years and end of his career. I think certain things are forgiven based off of certain fighters and their accolades of what they've done before. I think if he was a person that's never had championship and then just quit, I think people will be firing on him. But maybe certain people have sympathy for, hey, I was planning on this was my last fight, and I think this has happened before. And I can't remember a few times before, but I can't remember the fighters, but they said that, hey, this is, if I win or lose, it's going to be my last fight.
Was it for a championship?
That's what I can't remember so much. I know it definitely happened, championship. I don't want to, but maybe at least once, but I can't remember.
I know that GSP didn't officially announce that with the middleweight belt, but he won it and then retired right after that, but he didn't announce it beforehand. I can't recall off the top of my head of.
I think somebody announced that they may have been retiring if they win the championship, but I think every time they may have lost.
Yeah, I want to say that's happened where they announced it, but they lost. I know. Did it happen with Glover? I can't remember.
That's what I thought, but I didn't want to say it.
I don't quote me on that, but maybe no, because Bisbane was planning on defending it. And
Mel Watterson?
maybe a Watterson, or it's like we said. At the end of the day, we're not pro analysis, so
Yeah.
we can't keep track of all the things that happen in so much MMA we watch. But it might have been Watterson, might have been a Nunes. I have no clue, but that sounds familiar though.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, he's up there in age, so can't get too mad. But I say if you know you're gonna retire, I feel like you shouldn't do that before you win it initially. I feel like you should defend it once and be like, all right, once I win this defense, I'll retire. Was it a Habib? Didn't he say that was gonna be his last fight because his dad died or something like that?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't Google anything. I was just thinking about that off the top of my head, but who knows? But all three of us officially picked Volkanovski to win this fight, so it's definitely a fighters fan hard. I wouldn't say hardcore. I think even a casual fan can get into this, even though I don't think it's gonna draw like super high ratings. But I think like maybe not like a super casual fan, but like a fan who maybe watches every other pay-per-view will definitely tune into this, because definitely some fun fights on paper. We'll see if they actually get executed and it'd be fun fights, but we shall see. But drawing close to the end of the show, we'll be back next week to recap this card as always, but make sure to follow us on all social media platforms, TikToks, the Twitters, the IGs, and I'm gonna be back on the TikTok soon. And make sure to subscribe on YouTube and run those numbers up and like. And for the recap show, Admire will be back, and we'll have Chris with us, and of course Steve will be here. But that'll do it here for us at Haymaker Combat Sports. Until next time, be safe out there. Later.
This is Haymaker Combat Sports. Hear it here, coming straight from the source. Only with the real, they ain't here to dress it up. Sweet Science MMA, you can get it all from us. Trust, 5 stars, cause it's live.